Brace yourself, folks. We're going to disagree with Ben Shapiro. Hi, everybody.
Dun
This is
dun.
Kelly. What's that, sir?
It's a dun dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Hi, everybody. This is Kelly at KELLY on Twitter and Instagram, and this is Bog Panda. And with me, as always,
I am Dr. Mike at Official Pagan on everything. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, you know, send us DMs. Tell us if you're the big spoon or little spoon. Leave it in the comments. Go to another video, leave it in those comments in case we miss it on the comments here. Then hit up the merch store because we're not going to spoon you if you're not wearing one of our t-shirts.
you know, I'm so stupid. I think, hey, I'm introing this show. I'm in the clear. We're not gonna have any of the special material that Mike provides because I'm entering the show, and then I forget you'll hijack anything. So well, thanks for that.
That's a good
But
tagline. We'll hijack anything.
we'll hijack anything. Probably another thing that won't make it through the jackbooted thugs at Teespring, but
Depends on the art you include with it.
uh, but anyway, we just want to do kind of a quick show here. Mike and I have both recently watched Glass Onion and the sequel. So I don't know. Is it Knives Out, Glass Onion, or is it Glass Onion? I'm a little unclear on the branding, but it's the after Knives Out. It's the second one after Knives
Correct.
Out.
Yeah, it's the sequel to Knives Out, but the director has bemoaned Knives Out being a part of the title. It's meant to just be called Glass Onion, but Netflix added a Knives Out mystery as a subtitle so that people knew what it was related to.
That's right, because people are stupid and they can't figure that out according to Netflix. So not according to us. That's a Netflix thing. But we watched it and enjoyed it. But someone who watched it and didn't enjoy it was Ben Shapiro, who
Yes.
bemoaned it, you know, on Twitter. And if I kind of remember his main complaint, it was like I thought the story was going one way and then it went another, and I don't like that.
Yes.
Um,
He also, and maybe like, because so Twitter sucks on my phone. I don't know what it is, but like any phone that I get, it's just difficult to follow Twitter threads properly. So maybe he went off on like some sort of Twitter thread with talking with people about this. But I did see something where he talked about the politics of the movie. And I don't remember there being politics in the movie.
so
There's a character who's a politician, but like they don't really delve into politics, in my opinion, in the
no,
movie. They're more
no,
just like these sort of archetype characters that I guess, in today's world, you could, align with one side or the other. But I mean, like the politician character, they specifically say is a more liberal leaning character, whereas other ones are definitely, I don't want to give anything away, but more conservative leaning. So, I mean, it seems like a pretty varied group.
yeah, and I think, I think it's not really giving much away. The one of the characters is very, very clearly an Elon Musk variant.
Yes.
He's he's exaggerated in many ways. Philip Glass writing a tone for his island, these kinds of things. So it's interesting that way. And so, but I think you can pair. I mean, you can parody people like Elon Musk is a person who you can parody. There's lots to work on there, so doesn't necessarily bring in, that have to be viewed as a political attack. But yeah, so I think he sees my guess is he sees everything with that kind of lens. That's what it has to be. And then because you
That's
have that.
honestly what I was assuming, that that's just because if that's the world that he's coming from.
Yep.
That could be any movie, and I feel like he's going to. I don't want to speak for him. I'm not that familiar with his stuff, but I'm sure he's looking at everything through that lens to begin with.
But he's wrong, and we're here to tell you he's wrong because it's a
But he's
very
wrong.
enjoyable movie. And it features Dave Bautista as one of the actors in there. Dave from the WWE days, Guardians of the Galaxy, a bunch of other stuff here recently.
The Blade Runner
Um,
sequel.
yeah, and he's he kills it. He is a fun role.
Academy Award winning film, Army of the Dead.
That's right.
I need to keep saying that because that was overshadowed by the Will Smith stuff. And the real story of the last Oscar ceremony was Army of the Dead won an Academy Award.
Which may be why maybe they paid Will Smith off.
Oh yeah,
He
yeah.
needs to go.
That's my conspiracy theory about it.
My
Was
God.
that they were just like, you got to do something. You
Go,
saved the world from aliens, save us from Army of the Dead.
go.
And he was like, all right, but somebody's got to go down, and I guess it's Chris Rock.
Yeah, he seems small enough. Go for him. So yeah, but he's solid, and Mike and I were talking before the show a little bit. I'm super excited to see him as successful as he is now in this, because I just kind of remember he's a great wrestler, good performer, typically played kind of the bad guy, the villain, and was a heel for the most part in wrestling, but just never really, well, when he was on the mic, didn't spellbind the crowd like The Rock did, or and even though The Undertaker doesn't say much, he still had good mic skills. Chris Jericho is another one I mentioned to Mike, that people that were really, really good. That was never, Batista never got comfortable with that. And so to see where he's at now and put in the work that he's needed to be a contender for some of these roles, super glad to see that. Enjoyed really all the performances there in the whole thing. So it's fun performances, fun characters, much like Knives Out. Try work your way through it, try and figure out what's going on here. Good luck. And Daniel Craig, maybe it's because Knives Out wore me down to the concept of Daniel Craig as a Louisiana sharecropper. It's just there's still a little twitch when he kind of has his draw going, but I've become less sensitive to it.
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed Knives Out, and I like these type of movies. Like I like detective type stuff like this, and particularly this. I'm not exactly sure you're called, but more in that Sherlock Holmes type vein of detective story rather than the police procedural kind of thing. So I do enjoy these type of movies, but I remember I somehow didn't know about the accent going into Knives Out. So it really, really threw me when that happened. The first time he started talking, I was just like panicked and like looking around like, does everybody else hear this?
I'm having a stroke.
Yeah, it was very much in line with my reaction to Bane's voice in the Christopher Nolan Batman.
Yeah, I think they ought to overdub Bane with Bobcat Goldthwait for all the Batman movies.
So they did. I believe it's on the home releases. They did actually overdub some of the lines because they were so unintelligible. They did redo some of the lines. But I have this would be a whole separate episode. I am not a huge fan of Christopher Nolan, and particularly his sound mixes and stuff are complete garbage. And he defends these, and I don't. It's awful. So that's a whole other topic for another thing. But like he was probably incredibly happy with the way Bane sounded. He was the one who thought that was a great choice.
Right on point.
Yeah, nailed it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Tom Hardy was like, do you want me to try something else? And he was like, why?
Maybe so you could understand the words.
Yeah.
Now we're good.
Are we going to ADR this so you can hear me without the mask? No. Nope.
What's Bobcat Goldthwait doing over there? Lots of these questions were occurring. So,
but yeah, it was a very similar thing when I first heard that accent. I don't know if it was downplayed in the advertising, but I just don't remember that from the trailers or anything. And it just blindsided me in the theater. And so I never got used to it in the first movie. I do feel like he maybe toned it down a little bit in this one.
It's one of the two things. Either I just got softer on it and just kind of, okay, I'm used to it now, or he dialed it back a little bit. I think he dialed it back.
I think it's both, because I was prepared for it this time, so it wasn't as jarring. I do think he dialed it back though, because I was watching somebody played it. It was a review of this that I watched after I watched the movie, and they played a clip from Knives Out, and he is full on Foghorn Leghorn
Yep.
in that clip, and never in this movie was he that abrasive with it. So I do think he dialed it back just a tiny bit.
Yep. And I was never a Foghorn Leghorn fan.
Yeah.
Not to break into controversy, I know my stance on Betty White has always set me aside from the
True.
world.
I don't know where Ben Shapiro falls on Betty White,
That's
but I'm hoping he also sees her as the national treasure that I do.
yeah. Yeah, he might. And so that would be a place where you and Ben can agree.
Yeah,
Then,
that's
no,
I
you and
assume
Ben
that
can do a
that's where
show.
our common ground falls.
That's right. You guys can do a show trying to explain how wrong I am about may she rest in peace. Betty White, she's not funny. She was never funny.
Speaking of incredibly sexy women who passed away recently, the movie has a surprise cameo from Angela Lansbury.
Yeah. That yes, and two other folks that are interesting, which I won't spoil for you. but you know, I enjoyed it. Mixed. I got like mixed emotions on Ryan Johnson. Is that I think a lot of times his stuff sings and it's just great. He did a couple really critical Breaking Bad
Star Wars
episodes.
movies.
Breaking Bad episode.
Okay.
The Knives Out stuff's been great. How he's hunkering down on his one Star Wars movie where not even kind of being willing to say, yeah, maybe there's a point or two. Now some of the stuff that fandom has on occasion been known to get a little toxic, and so some of it's not entirely fair. Some of the complaints and concerns were not entirely unfounded though, but when it's kind of like, hey, we're going to do a new trilogy, do whatever you want each episode, that doesn't set you up for success anyway. So
Right. Yeah, I don't think the trilogy was that good, the Star Wars trilogy. And I think the first one got, although there was a lot of criticism at how closely it stuck to the formula, I think it largely got a pass because of the excitement and nostalgia surrounding it. But I think that'll be a movie that when people revisit it as time goes on, isn't going to age much better than the other two.
no, I think of the three, it probably has a tendency to would maybe fare the best, but it got a pass initially just because
Yeah, I mean that's like saying which of the Ewoks movies was better.
That's right.
Yeah, so yeah, I do think it's the strongest of the three, not his, the first one that Abrams did. But I mean, I don't think anybody's like, those are my favorite Star Wars movies.
But
Especially not when the holiday specials out there. But I'll say this about his Star Wars entry, and especially now that some time has passed. The first one of that trilogy that Abrams directed did get a lot of flack for sticking so closely to the formula. So to his credit, he did something different with it.
He definitely did not stick to many parts of the formula.
He did something different with it. And it's one of those things like, I always use bands as examples like AC/DC and Cannibal Corpse, and bands whose records have a very, very consistent sound to them. I don't want to say samey necessarily because that sounds like I'm saying in a negative way, but there's a real consistency, and sometimes people are critical of that because they do sound like maybe there's not a lot of growth in there. But I would argue at the same time that if you deviated from that, those same people would be freaking out. And he kind of proved it with Star Wars. Like, there's a lot of fanboy bitching online about, it's just like the original trilogy. He's like, cool, I'll do something different. And people had meltdowns over the movie. So again, I think it was a no-win scenario. Unless you're Jon Favreau making Baby Yoda, that wasn't going to win.
That's right. Yep, no doubt. So hope you folks enjoyed our Glass Onion with bonus Star Wars coverage.
Well, did you like the movie? I don't think we actually.
Glass Onion, I loved it. I really, really enjoyed it. Thought the humor was great in it. I liked the slightly less Foghorn Leghorn Daniel Craig. That distracted me less. Twists I didn't see. coming on that. Batista was in it, and I like him. So no, I highly recommend it. If you haven't had a chance to see it, you should watch it. It's fun. It's good. It's a good movie.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think both movies are really strong. Again, maybe this one edges it out just because I was expecting the accent, and it does seem like he just slightly dialed it back. I like the atmosphere of the first one a little bit more, but I like that they didn't try to recreate that kind of gothic
Yeah.
manner look of it. They went in a totally different direction with it, which I liked. So I'm looking forward to the third installment, since there's guaranteed to be a third, since Netflix already paid for it. So there will be at least 3 of these.
It'll be Knives Out, Glass Onion, something. Just so you know.
I kind of hope that's what they do. A Knives Out Glass Onion mystery.
Yeah. Knives Out, Glass Onion, Lamb Dinner, whatever it's going to be. So we'll see. Wheels within wheels. Excellent. Well, I just wanted to kind of share a little bit, tell Ben he was wrong. Encourage you folks to go check this movie out. It's pretty awesome. And if you'd like to weigh in on your Star Wars latest trilogy thoughts, always like to hear from you in the comments. So.
Bog Panda.